Thank you, Nasca Hirlock. Minister, on Tuesday, Senator Robbie Gallagher and Senator Donovan spoke on the issue on the pay of whole-time retained firefighters, pointing out that negotiations with the LGMA have broken down and that strike action has been served on the relevant parties. We heard how a whole-time retained firefighter earns approximately €700 per month, which equates to 99 cents per hour. And they must be on call 24/7, 360 days a year, stay within 3 kilometres of the station at all times, attend the station within 5 minutes of a call, and attend 8 weeks of compulsory training in the first year to qualify as a firefighter. So we all can understand why strike action is being taken over the abysmal level of pay. But Minister, on Tuesday, Deputy Dara Calleary, on behalf of Minister O'Brien, responded that should a period of industrial action commence on the 6th of June, local authorities will put in place appropriate contingency measures to ensure the ongoing provision of essential services is maintained. Minister, I've been contacted by multiple councillors in Tipperary, in Galway, in Meath, off the back of that response, who don't know how that is going to work or whether it is going to be possible. Many simply cannot see how the Council will be able to ensure the uninterrupted provision of firefighting services without their local retained firefighters. What happens if, God forbid, we have another Creech Law? What happens if we have a big industrial fire? Who will be expected to step up? But there's another aspect to this too, Minister, which compounds the problem in what I think may be a very dangerous matter. It's that the local authority water workers are planning to go on strike as well. So fewer firefighters, and if there's a major water leak in a town or a burst pipe, no one will be there to fix it. So we'll have no water either. That, to me, Minister, sounds like the perfect storm just waiting to happen. One glance at the Irish water map shows water outages all over the country. We wouldn't have time to list them here this morning. And on the 7th and 8th, and on a rolling basis after that, the local authority water workers will not be there to fix them. So, Minister, can you please take that into account as you will outline how the Department is going to make absolutely sure that local authorities are able to continue their service this month and ensure that they are fully equipped and prepared to handle whatever accidents may occur in these areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. You have 4 minutes.
And I'd like to start off by thanking Senator Keogan for raising what is obviously a very important issue and one that is important we discuss in advance of any potential action. The provision of a fire service in its functional area, as you'll be aware, Senator, including the establishment and maintenance of a fire brigade, the assessment of fire cover needs and the provision of fire station premises, is a statutory function of individual fire authorities under the Fire Services Act 1981 and 2003. The Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage supports fire authorities by establishing policy, setting national standards for fire safety and fire service provision, providing a central training programme, issuing guidance on operational and other matters, and providing capital funding for priority infrastructural projects and the procurement of essential frontline fire appliances and equipment. Under the Fire Services Act 1981 and 2003, 31 local authorities provide fire prevention and fire protection services for communities through 27 service delivery structures. Local authority fire services are delivered by approximately 3,300 local authority staff engaged at 217 fire stations nationwide, with 16 of these stations staffed by full-time firefighters, a further 4 a mix of full-time and retained, and 197 staffed solely by retained firefighters. Minister Darragh O'Brien is aware of the challenges associated with the recruitment and retention of retained fire personnel experienced by some local authorities. That is the reason Minister O'Brien directed the Managing Board of the National Directorate for Fire and Emergency Management, the NDFEM, to review the delivery and sustainability of the local authority retained fire services, with particular emphasis on the recruitment and retention of staff. That review was published in December of last year, titled Retained Fire Services in Ireland, a review of recruitment and retention and the future sustainability of services delivery. Following the dissolution of discussions at an independently chaired facilitation forum on priority industrial relations issues identified in the report, SIP2 have notified all local authority chief executives that retained firefighters intend to begin industrial action from the 6th of June with a phased weekly escalation of actions to follow on the 13th and the 20th of June. In preparation for proposed industrial action, officials from the National Directorate for Fire and Emergency Management within the department's, the Minister's Department, working closely with the Local Government Management Agency and Chief Fire Officers, have prepared a guidance document for local authorities. This guidance document is based on the provisions of the 1992 Code of Practice, SI number 1/1992, Industrial Relations Act 1990, Code of Practice on Dispute Procedures Declaration Order 1992, to ensure a consistent approach to managing the consequences of industrial action in the retained fire services through establishing effective contingency arrangements to ensure fire service response, proactively ensuring the health, safety and well-being of staff, and protecting communities to the maximum extent possible during the dispute. The guidance aims to provide a consistent approach to planning for contingency provision of emergency fire cover by local authorities for the duration of the industrial action period. To that end, senior fire service management are meeting with local SIP2 representative committees in each local authority to establish agreed local contingency measures. SIP2 have confirmed, in response to the LGMA, that provisions of the 1992 Code of Practice on dispute procedures, including essential services, enabling cooperation on contingency planning and the continued provision of essential services will be adhered to by all SIP2 members during the course of this dispute. The following principles are agreed with SIP2 and should be implemented for the duration of this dispute by staff and management. Number 1, public safety will be safeguarded by both staff and management at all times during the dispute as a top priority. There will be no compromise in the fire service health and safety measures, and given these constraints, management will engage locally to enable firefighters to take industrial action, recognising non-engagement in work that is not urgent or essential for the duration of this dispute. In addition, a national fire safety awareness campaign will run over traditional and social media for the duration of the proposed industrial action to reinforce home fire safety messaging to the public.
Thank you. Senator, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Minister. And to be quite honest, it's really just a copy and paste from what really we had the other day. The only line there that is new in it, to this end, senior fire management are meeting with the local SIP2 representative communities in each local authority to establish agreed local contingency measures. They're the measures that I asked about. I want to know what those measures are. The communities and the businesses want to know what those contingency measures are. We don't want situations like what happened in Blanchardstown the weekend. What happens if our fire services aren't going to be on the ground? You don't know what's going to happen. What happens if we've got no water? I mean, these are things. It looks like one arm of the state doesn't know what the other arm within local government is doing. We have no water service, no people there next week working in our water service and local authorities. We then have our firefighters out at the same time. It just doesn't make sense that there is no joint up thinking on this particular issue here. It is a catastrophe waiting to happen. And I'm really disappointed by the answer here this morning. And nobody has addressed the fact that the water services within our local authorities are going on strike next week as well. So schools that are doing the Leave Cert next week, hospitals, all of these everyday things that we need in our communities are going to be affected. Look at the outages on the Irish Water website yesterday. Those can apply next week as well. They're not going to go away. So, Minister, this is just a cop-out. In all fairness, it's a cop-out. I think we need to look after our firefighters, and I think the Irish water issue needs to be addressed within our local authorities, and our staff there need to be looked after. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister, you have 1 minute.
Thanks, Ciara. Senator, you might not have heard my initial response. You mightn't fully taken all the bits on board. A key element of that is SIP2 have confirmed that they will adhere to the 1992 Act. And what that clearly sets out, and I think we have a responsibility here not to scaremonger in terms of the public. The public safety will be safeguarded by staff and management at all times. You referenced Blanchardstown. Like, if I was a member of the public looking at this, I would think no member of the fire service is going to go to a fire incident like that. They have made this quite clear. No, hold on.
On the goodwill. You're relying once again on the goodwill of our fire service.
The SIP2 have committed to that in line with the 1992 Act, and we should not stand up in this House and allude to people that if there is a fire emergency, they won't come towards that. I'll get to my point about retained fire service. I deal with my own retained fire service in Kildare. I know how they need to be treated better. Absolutely. But let's not scaremonger in this House and try and tell people here if there's a serious fire incident that these good men and women won't respond to that because they have committed to through the representative body. What is clear from the findings of the retained review report is that the work-life balance of retained firefighters needs to be addressed. I absolutely accept that, and government accepts that. And work is underway through agreed structures to begin implementing the recommendations set out in the report to ensure the sustainability of retained fire services as an attractive employment option. And I don't doubt how hard it was for retained firefighters to make this decision to seek industrial action. And we respect that they will do that, and we recognise that the non-emergency element won't be done during that dispute period. But during the most recent discussions between management and SIP2, substantial progress was made in addressing the work-life balance concerns of retained firefighters, as acknowledged by SIP2. A positive conclusion to the process, to the satisfaction of all parties, has not been possible to date. However, management remain available to recommence discussions with a view to resolving outstanding industrial relations matters, and Minister Bryan would encourage all parties to use the agreed IR processes set out in the Build Momentum Pay Agreement to bring matters to a satisfactory conclusion as soon as possible. Thank you, Colonel.
Sorry, Senator, do not interfere.
Maybe put down
Next commencement matter is in the name of Senator